The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with panic. Ambassador Thylix stood at the center podium, his blue scales shimmering under the bright lights. Around him, representatives from dozens of worlds whispered in fear. The crystalline beings from Zephyr clicked nervously. The plant-like Verdani rustled their leaves. Even the wise gaseous forms of the Nebula Collective swirled with worry. "Friends," Thylix began, his voice shaking, "we face the end of everything we know." The massive screens around the hall showed the same terrible images. Dead worlds stripped bare of all life, planets reduced to hollow shells, star systems where nothing remained but empty space and floating debris. The Harvester fleet had awakened from the edge of the galaxy, and it was coming for them all. Thylix had seen the reports himself. 3 core worlds had fallen in as many weeks. Kepler-7, with its billion inhabitants, had been consumed in 2 days. The industrial stations of Vega Prime had lasted only hours. The agricultural paradise of New Eden was now nothing but rock and metal. "Our fleets cannot stop them," continued Thylix. "Our weapons do nothing. Our shields fail. Our people run in terror." The truth hurt to speak. The Galactic Council had known peace for 1,000 years. Their ships were built for exploration and trade, not war. Their crews had never seen real combat. When the first Harvester ships appeared, the defenders had scattered like frightened children to Merrill. Kex of the Zephyrian fleet had tried to organize a defense at Kepler-7. His crystalline warships had fired their most powerful energy beams at the approaching enemy. The Harvesters had simply absorbed the energy and grown stronger. When the enemy returned fire, Kex's ships had shattered like glass. The Verdani had attempted a different approach. Their living ships could repair themselves and adapt to damage. But the Harvesters had learned from each encounter. They developed new weapons that turned the organic hulls against themselves. The Verdani ships had consumed their own crews before the horrified captains could stop them. "We have tried everything," Thylix said, spreading his arms wide. "Diplomacy fails because these machines do not communicate. Science fails because they adapt faster than we can learn. Force fails because we are not warriors." The hall fell silent. Everyone knew what he would say next, but no one wanted to hear it. "We must ask for help from outside our borders." A wave of shocked gasps filled the chamber. For centuries, the Galactic Council had remained isolated from the unknown regions of space. They had detected radio signals from other civilizations, but had never made contact. The risk seemed too great. What if these strangers were hostile? What if they brought war to their peaceful galaxy? Now war had come anyway. "There are others out there," Thylix continued. "We have monitored their transmissions. Some appear to be different from us." The screens changed to show star charts of the outer rim. Red markers indicated the sources of alien signals. Most came from a small cluster of systems dominated by a yellow star. The intercepted communications were strange and violent. These beings seemed to fight constantly, even among themselves. "Their transmissions speak of war," Thylix said quietly, "of weapons we cannot understand, of conflicts that span generations. They call themselves humans." The word felt strange in his mouth. The concept was alien to his people. The Villani had evolved on a peaceful world where cooperation meant survival. The idea of sapient beings who specialized in violence was almost incomprehensible. "Perhaps," he continued, "those who know war can help us fight it." The debate that followed lasted for hours. The Zephyrians argued that contacting violent aliens might bring a second threat to their galaxy. The Verdani worried about contaminating their peaceful culture with ideas of warfare. The Nebula Collective questioned whether beings capable of violence could be trusted, but as they argued, more reports arrived. The Harvester fleet had consumed another system. Billions more lives were gone. The enemy was adapting to every defense, growing stronger with each victory. At their current rate of expansion, they would reach the core worlds within months. Finally, Elder Vox of the Nebula Collective spoke the words everyone was thinking. "We are already dead," the gaseous being said simply. "These Harvesters will consume us all. If we must choose between certain destruction and possible salvation, the choice is clear." The vote was close, but it passed. The Galactic Council would send a desperate message to the unknown humans, begging for help against an enemy they could not defeat alone. Thylix worked through the night to craft the transmission. How do you ask strangers for help? How do you explain the magnitude of the threat? How do you convince warriors to fight for people they have never met? In the end, he kept it simple. "To any who receive this message," he began, "we are the Galactic Council. representatives of 47 peaceful worlds. We face an enemy we cannot defeat. Ancient machines from the edge of space consume everything in their path. Our fleets are broken. Our people are dying. We have detected your transmissions and know that you understand warfare. Please, if you have any mercy in your hearts, help us. We offer everything we have in exchange for your aid. This may be our last transmission. The darkness is coming for us all. The message was broadcast on all frequencies toward human space. It would take weeks to reach them and weeks more for any response to return. By then, the harvesters might have consumed half the galaxy. Thylik stood alone in the communications center after sending the message. Through the great windows, he could see the lights of the capital city below. Millions of Villani went about their daily lives, unaware that their entire civilization hung by a thread. Children played in the parks. Scholars debated in the universities. Artists created beauty that might soon be lost forever. He wondered what kind of beings would answer their call. The human transmissions spoke of terrible weapons and endless conflicts. They fought wars that lasted years, even decades. They had words for types of violence that had no translation in any civilized language. Were they asking devils to save them from demons? A young technician approached him nervously. "Ambassador," she said, "we are receiving reports from the outer systems. The harvesters have reached the Belmont sector." Thylix closed his eyes. Belmont was home to 12 billion people across 6 worlds. It was also only 50 light-years from the capital. "How long?" he asked. "Our analysts estimate 3 weeks before they reach the core systems." 3 weeks. Barely enough time for the human ships to reach them, even if they left immediately upon receiving the message, and that assumed the humans would help at all. Why would strangers risk their lives for people they had never met? But Thylix held on to hope. In all their intercepted human transmissions, one theme appeared constantly. These beings told stories of heroes who fought impossible odds. They sang songs of warriors who died to protect others. They seemed to value courage above all else. Maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. As he watched the stars above, Thylix whispered a prayer to ancient gods his people had almost forgotten. Gods of war and sacrifice from the dim times before peace had made them obsolete. "If you are real," he said quietly, "send us heroes. Send us someone who can fight the darkness and win." In the depths of space, the message raced toward human territory at the speed of light, carrying the desperate hope of an entire galaxy. Commander Sarah Chen was halfway through her morning coffee when the universe changed forever. The monitoring station on Kepler Station was quiet that morning. Sarah had been tracking routine shipping lanes and listening for pirate chatter. The Outer Rim was always dangerous, but it was honest danger. Pirates you could fight. Raiders you could track. This was different. The signal came from outside known space beyond the edge of human territory. At first, Sarah thought it was equipment failure. No one transmitted on those frequencies. But as she ran the signal through the translation computers, her coffee grew cold in her hands. "Holy shit," she whispered. 20 minutes later, she was on a secure channel to Fleet Command on Mars. Admiral Marcus Torres answered personally, his scarred face grim on the view screen. Behind him, Sarah could see the bustle of the command center, officers moving with urgent purpose. "You're certain about this translation, Commander?" Torres asked. "Yes, sir. I've run it through every program we have. It's a distress signal from an unknown alien civilization. They're under attack by some kind of automated fleet. They're asking for military assistance." Torres was quiet for a long moment. Sarah had served under him during the Martian insurrection. She knew that look. He was already planning a war. "Send me everything," he said finally. "Every byte of data, every translation variant." "And, Commander?" "This stays classified until further notice." The news spread through military channels like wildfire. Within hours, senior officers across human space were reviewing the alien transmission. The footage was horrifying. Entire planets stripped bare. Fleets of machines consuming everything in their path. Billions of lives lost. But it was the aliens themselves that shocked the human military leaders most. These beings had no concept of real warfare. Their ships were beautiful but fragile. Their weapons were designed for mining, not fighting. Their crews panicked at the first sign of violence. "They're like children," Captain Elena Vasquez said during the emergency briefing aboard her ship, the Fury's Edge. They've never seen real war. The meeting included the commanders of humanity's most battle-tested units. These were men and women who had fought in the colonial wars, the Martian uprising, and a dozen smaller conflicts. They understood violence in ways the aliens clearly did not. "Look at this," Major James Park said, highlighting part of the transmission. "They call their military ships exploration vessels. Their heaviest weapons are rated for asteroid mining. They've been at peace for 1,000 years. Colonel Sarah Kim, commander of the 3rd Marine Assault Division, shook her head. 1,000 years of peace. No wonder they can't fight these machines. The debate that followed was brief but intense. Earth's government wanted to proceed carefully, establish diplomatic protocols, negotiate terms. The military had a different perspective. "Sir," Captain Vasquez said to Admiral Torres, "those people are dying while we debate. Every hour we waste means more dead civilians." Torres nodded grimly. "The politicians can catch up later. We're military. When people call for help, we respond." The assembly of the response fleet happened with shocking speed. Human military doctrine emphasized rapid deployment and overwhelming force. Within 72 hours, a task force was gathering at the Titan shipyards. The ships were not beautiful like the alien vessels. They were scarred veterans of humanity's violent history. The dreadnought Indomitable bore plasma burns from the siege of Europa. The assault carrier Cerberus still had armor patches from the Battle of Ceres. The destroyer Fury's Edge had been rebuilt 3 times, each iteration deadlier than the last, but it was the crews that made the difference. These were soldiers who had grown up on worlds where war was a constant companion. They had learned to fight in the asteroid mines of the belt, where a single mistake meant explosive decompression. They had survived the brutal close-quarters combat of the Martian tunnel systems. They knew how to kill efficiently and without hesitation. Dr. James Okafor worked frantically to understand alien technology from the intercepted transmissions. What he found both amazed and worried him. "Their engineering is incredible," he reported to Admiral Torres. "Their power systems are decades ahead of ours. Their computers use quantum processing we can barely understand. But their weapons, what about them? They don't have any. Not real ones. Everything they call a weapon is dual-purpose mining or construction equipment. It's like they've forgotten how to make things designed purely to kill." Meanwhile, the Harvester fleet continued its advance through alien space. Long-range sensors tracked its movement as it consumed system after system. The machines were methodical, efficient, and utterly merciless. Captain Rodriguez of the destroyer Cerberus studied the tactical data with growing concern. "They adapt," she told her crew. "Every time the aliens try something new, these machines learn from it. They don't just copy the defense, they improve on it." The implications were terrifying. The Harvesters weren't just following programming. They were evolving, becoming more dangerous with each encounter. As the human fleet prepared to jump to alien space, Admiral Torres addressed his commanders one final time. "We're going to war against an enemy we don't understand to save people we've never met," he said. "The enemy has superior numbers and adaptive technology. The Allies don't know how to fight. By any reasonable measure, this is a suicide mission." He paused, looking at each officer in turn. "But they asked for heroes, and that's what we are. We're going to show these machines what humans do to bullies. We're going to teach our new allies how to fight. And we're going to win because the alternative is the death of entire civilizations." The response was immediate and unanimous. Hurrah! The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying humanity's answer to the alien plea for help. They brought the finest weapons human engineering could produce, tactics refined by centuries of warfare, and the unshakable belief that some things were worth dying for. Behind them, Earth's politicians finally got word of the military's decision. The debates in Congress and Parliament would rage for weeks. But the soldiers were already gone, racing toward a war that would change the galaxy forever. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Torres watched the swirling colors of hyperspace. In his 40 years of military service, he had fought pirates, rebels, and terrorists, but he had never faced an enemy like the Harvesters. "Sir," his aide asked quietly, "do you really think we can win?" Torres was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of humanity's violent history. "Son, they made 2 mistakes. First, they threatened innocent people. Second, they picked a fight with a species that's been at war for 10,000 years. He turned to face the young officer. "We might not all make it home, but we'll teach these machines that humans don't run from monsters. We hunt them." The fleet raced through space toward an uncertain destiny, carrying with them the hopes of two civilizations and the promise of salvation or damnation for all. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Thesia system, just as the first Harvester scouts appeared. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display with practiced eyes. The alien homeworld hung in space like a blue-green jewel, but it was surrounded by chaos. Refugee ships fled in all directions while primitive defense platforms fired uselessly at the approaching enemy. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Walsh from the sensor station, "I count 47 Harvester vessels approaching the inner system. They'll reach the planet in 6 hours." Torres nodded grimly. They had arrived just in time. "Signal the alien defense fleet. Tell them we're here to help." The response came quickly. Ambassador Thylex's voice crackled over the communication system, speaking through hastily programmed translation software. "Unknown vessels, this is Ambassador Thylex of the Villani people. Are you the humans? This is Admiral Marcus Torres, Terran Colonial Defense Force. We received your distress call. Request permission to board your command ship for tactical planning." There was a long pause. When Thylex spoke again, his voice shook with relief and fear. "Permission granted, but please hurry. They're coming." 20 minutes later, Torres materialized on the bridge of the Villani flagship Harmony. The transport beam faded, leaving him face-to-face with his first alien contact. Thylex was smaller than Torres had expected, perhaps 5 feet tall, with blue scales that shimmered under the ship's soft lighting. His large eyes held an intelligence that Torres recognized, but also a terror that went bone deep. Around them, the alien bridge crew worked with desperate efficiency. But Torres could see immediately that these were not warriors. Their movements were too careful, too gentle. Their equipment was beautiful but fragile. Everything about the ship spoke of a people who had never known real violence. "Admiral Torres," Thylex said, approaching cautiously, "I must thank you for coming. We had hoped, but we were not certain." "Save the thanks until we win," Torres said bluntly. "I need tactical data. Fleet positions, weapons capabilities, enemy analysis. Everything you have." Thylex gestured to a holographic display that showed the approaching Harvester fleet. The enemy ships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls absorbing the light of nearby stars. "We have tried everything," Thylex explained. "Energy weapons, kinetic bombardment, even ramming attacks. Nothing works. They adapt to each strategy within minutes." Torres studied the display, his experienced eye picking out details the aliens had missed. The Harvester formation was tactically sound but predictable. They moved like a computer program, which they probably were. "What about your fleet composition?" he asked. Thylex looked embarrassed. "We have 17 ships. The largest carries a crew of 300. Our weapons are primarily mining lasers adapted for combat use." Torres blinked. In human terms, the alien defense force was barely a light patrol squadron. And the enemy? Over 2,000 ships detected so far. More arrive each day. The numbers were staggering. Even with humanity's advanced weapons and tactics, they were facing odds of nearly 50 to 1. "Admiral," Thylex said quietly, "we know you have sacrificed much to come here, but perhaps it would be wiser to evacuate what people we can and retreat to the outer systems." Torres turned to face the alien ambassador. In the blue-scaled features, he saw the same look he had observed in countless civilians during the war. The look of people who had given up hope. "Ambassador," he said firmly, "humans don't retreat from bullies. We fight them." The first engagement began 2 hours later. Torres had positioned the human fleet between the approaching Harvesters and the planet. The alien ships hung back, their crews watching in amazement as the human vessels prepared for battle. "All ships, this is Torres," the Admiral broadcast on the fleet channel. "Remember, these machines adapt to everything. Don't give them time to learn. Hit hard, hit fast, and keep changing tactics." The Harvester fleet approached in their perfect formation, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They had faced no real resistance in their conquest of 3-star systems. These new ships looked different, but they were still just obstacles to be removed. They were wrong. Captain Elena Vasquez struck first. The Fury's Edge emerged from behind Thesia's largest moon at full acceleration, her fusion engines blazing like a miniature star. The Harvesters detected her approach and adjusted their formation. But they were thinking like machines. Humans, as it turned out, were much more unpredictable. Vasquez waited until the last possible moment. then fired a full spread of nuclear torpedoes, while simultaneously triggering her ship's emergency maneuvering system. The Fury's Edge spun away from the enemy formation in a series of random vectors that no computer could predict. The nuclear explosions tore through the Harvester front line, destroying 4 ships and damaging a dozen more. But the real surprise came when the machines tried to adapt. Now, Torres broadcast. The rest of the human fleet opened fire from completely different positions. Captain Rodriguez's destroyer Cerberus attacked from below the system plane. Major Kim's assault ship struck from the asteroid belt. The cruiser Defiant emerged from hyperspace directly behind the enemy formation. Each human ship used different weapons, different tactics, different timing. The Harvesters, programmed to learn from each encounter, found themselves trying to adapt to dozens of conflicting strategies simultaneously. For the first time in their conquest, the machines experienced something alien to their programming: confusion. The battle raged for 3 hours. Human ships danced through space with an agility that amazed the watching aliens. They absorbed damage that would have crippled alien vessels and kept fighting. When the destroyer Valiant lost her main engines, her crew rigged explosive charges and rammed the largest Harvester ship, laughing over the comm channel as they triggered the detonation, but it was the aftermath that truly shocked the aliens. As the smoke cleared, Thylix counted the results. 18 Harvester ships destroyed, dozens more damaged. The human fleet had lost 3 vessels and taken significant damage to the rest. By any reasonable measure, it was a crushing victory. The humans acted like it was just another day at work. Damage reports. Torres called over the fleet channel. Cerberus reporting engine damage and hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, came Rodriguez's calm voice. We're still operational. Fury's Edge here. Lost our starboard weapon array, but we're good to go, Vasquez added cheerfully. Thylix approached Torres with wonder in his large eyes. Admiral, that was extraordinary. I have never seen anything like it. Your people fought with such violence? Torres suggested. Courage, Thylix finished. But also, you seemed to enjoy it. Torres was quiet for a moment. Around them, the human crew worked to repair battle damage with an efficiency born of long practice. They joked about their wounds, boasted about their kills, and planned improvements for the next engagement. Ambassador, he said finally, we've been fighting for our entire history. Wars against nature, wars against each other, wars against anyone who threatened what we loved. It's made us into something your people might not understand. What is that? Torres gestured toward the retreating Harvester fleet. Predators. The victory celebration was short-lived. Long-range sensors detected massive Harvester reinforcements approaching from 3 different directions. The machines had learned from their defeat and were bringing overwhelming force to bear. How many ships? Torres asked his sensor officer. Over 500 confirmed, sir. Possibly more. Even Thylix could do that math. The humans had proven they could fight the Harvesters. But not 500 of them. Admiral, the alien said quietly, perhaps now would be the time to consider evacuation. Torres looked at the tactical display, studying the approaching enemy fleets. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 10,000 years of human warfare. Ambassador, you asked for heroes. We came here to fight monsters, not to run from them. He turned to his communications officer. Signal Earth. Tell them we need reinforcements, and tell them to bring the heavy weapons. Thylix felt a chill run down his spine. If what they had just witnessed was considered light combat by human standards, what would happen when they brought their real weapons to bear? For the first time since the crisis began, he wondered if they had asked the right kind of help from the stars. 3 months after first contact, the war had changed everything. Colonel Sarah Kim stood in the briefing room aboard the Villani cruiser Peace of Stars, watching alien officers learn human tactics. The blue-scaled Villani sat alongside crystalline Zephyrians and plant-like Verdani, all of them studying holographic displays of battle formations. Remember, Kim told them, the Harvesters adapt to patterns. Never use the same approach twice. If you attacked from above yesterday, come from below today. If you used energy weapons last week, switch to kinetics this week. A young Villani officer raised his hand. Colonel Kim, what if we run out of variations? Kim smiled grimly. Then we get creative. Humans have been finding new ways to kill things for a very long time. The partnership between humans and aliens had evolved into something neither side had expected. Human tactical officers served on alien ships, teaching crews how to fight and survive. In return, Alien engineers provided humans with technology decades ahead of anything Earth had produced. The results were remarkable. Alien ships now carried human-designed weapon systems and armor plating. Human vessels integrated alien shield generators and faster-than-light drives. The combined fleets could match the harvesters in firepower, if not in numbers. But the cost was terrible. The war had become a grinding campaign across multiple star systems. Each victory required sacrifice that horrified the aliens. Human crews accepted casualty rates that would have broken any peaceful civilization. When the cruiser Relentless lost half her crew to harvester boarding machines, the survivors had simply sealed the damaged sections and kept fighting. Captain Thylix, now serving as a liaison officer aboard the human flagship, watched the daily casualty reports with growing unease. The numbers were staggering. Ships lost, crews killed, entire squadrons vanishing in desperate attacks against impossible odds. "How do you bear it?" he asked Admiral Torres one evening, as they reviewed the latest battle reports. Torres looked up from his datapad, his scarred face showing the strain of 3 months of constant warfare. "Bear what?" "The losses. Your people die in every engagement. Yesterday alone you lost 300 crew members. Yet your surviving officers speak of it as an acceptable trade." Torres was quiet for a long moment. Outside the ship's viewports, the stars showed no sign of the war raging among them. "Ambassador," he said finally, "do you know how humans measure military success? By territory gained? Resources captured? By mission accomplished? We came here to stop the harvesters from destroying your people. Every day your children wake up safe is a victory. Every world still inhabited is worth any price we pay." Thylix struggled to understand the human mindset. On his homeworld, a single death was mourned by entire communities. The humans spoke of hundreds of casualties as if discussing weather reports. But gradually he began to see the logic behind their apparent callousness. The human officers who seemed so casual about death were the same ones who risked everything to save alien civilians. Captain Rodriguez had deliberately crashed her ship into a harvester dreadnought to save a refugee convoy. Major Park's Marines had held a defensive position for 18 hours against overwhelming odds, buying time for the evacuation of an entire planet. They were not cold or uncaring. They had simply learned to function despite the pain. The turning point came at the Battle of Kepler Station. The harvesters had adapted to human tactics faster than anyone expected. Their latest ships carried countermeasures that neutralized human weapons and defenses, energy shields that absorbed nuclear explosions, adaptive armor that turned kinetic projectiles into harmless dust, point defense systems that could track and destroy even the most maneuverable human fighters. For the first time since arriving in alien space, the human fleet faced the possibility of total defeat. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching his task force take devastating losses. The harvesters had learned to fight like humans, unpredictably, aggressively, and with complete disregard for their own survival. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we've lost contact with the Cerberus and Defiant. The Fury's Edge is heavily damaged and requesting permission to withdraw." Torres studied the tactical display. 40 human ships faced over 200 harvesters in the space around Kepler Station. The aliens had been right from the beginning. They were badly outnumbered, and now they were outgunned as well. It was time to escalate. "Signal the fleet," Torres ordered. "Authorization code Omega 77. Unlock the restricted weapons." His aide looked shocked. "Sir, those weapons are banned by the Geneva Convention, the Mars Accords, and the Colonial Peace Treaty." "Those treaties don't apply to alien space," Torres said coldly. "And they certainly don't apply to genocidal machines." 20 minutes later, the nature of the war changed forever. The first planet-killer warhead detonated in the center of the Harvester Formation. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away, as artificial singularities tore space itself apart. 50 Harvester ships simply ceased to exist. The nanoplague bombs came next. Self-replicating mechanical viruses that consumed any artificial material they encountered. Harvester hulls dissolved like tissue paper, as the invisible swarms ate through their molecular structure. Finally, the reality bombs, weapons that human scientists barely understood, based on captured alien technology and theoretical physics. They didn't destroy matter. They convinced the universe that certain areas of space had never existed at all. Ambassador Thylix watched the display in horror as the Harvester fleet vanished. Not destroyed, not defeated, simply erased from existence. "Admiral," he said quietly, "what have you done?" Torres turned to face the alien, his expression grim. "What was necessary?" "But those weapons, they could destroy entire star systems. Your own people banned them." "Yes, because we understand what they can do. We've seen what happens when violence goes too far." Thylik stared at the empty space where 200 enemy ships had been moments before. "If you have weapons like these, why did you not use them earlier? Why did you let so many of your people die?" Torres was quiet for a long time before answering. "Because once you cross certain lines, you can't go back. Every weapon we just used is a crime against nature itself. We built them hoping we'd never need them, but you kept them. Because sometimes monsters are real, and the only way to stop them is to become something worse." The victory at Kepler Station broke the back of the Harvester advance, but it also broke something in the human-alien alliance. The peaceful species who had asked for help now faced the terrible knowledge that their rescuers possessed weapons capable of destroying entire civilizations. Late that night, Thylix found Torres standing alone in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars. "Do you regret it?" the alien asked. "Using the weapons? No, having to build them in the first place? Every day. My people are frightened," Thylix admitted. "They wonder if we have simply traded one threat for another." Torres nodded slowly. "They should be frightened. We are dangerous. More dangerous than the Harvesters in some ways. Then why should we trust you?" Torres turned to face his alien friend, and Thylix saw something in the human's eyes that surprised him. Not the cold calculation of a warrior, but genuine pain. "Because we know we're monsters," Torres said quietly, "and we chose to fight other monsters instead of innocent people." Outside the viewport, the stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the struggles of the small beings who had learned to travel between them. But somewhere in the darkness, the war continued, and both sides were learning that victory sometimes came at a price too terrible to calculate. The final battle came at the Nexus system, where the galaxy's communication network connected every known civilization. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the largest fleet in human history prepare for combat. 500 human warships hung in space alongside twice as many alien vessels. The combined armada represented every military unit the Alliance could gather. It would not be enough. "Sir," reported Captain Chen from the sensor station, "Harvester reinforcements continue to arrive. Current count is over 3,000 ships. The enemy had learned from every defeat. These were not the simple machines that had started the war months ago. They had evolved, adapted, become something new and terrible. Their ships were larger, faster, and armed with weapons that defied known physics. Worse, they had stopped trying to preserve anything they conquered. The latest Harvester attacks left nothing behind, not even debris. They're not trying to harvest resources anymore," Dr. Okafor reported from his science station. "They're just destroying everything." Ambassador Thylix stood beside Torres, his blue scales pale with fear. Around them, the bridge crew worked with grim efficiency. After months of war, humans and aliens had learned to function as a single unit. "Admiral," Thylix said quietly, "if we fail here, the Harvesters will have access to the Galactic Communication Network," Torres finished. "They'll be able to coordinate attacks across every inhabited system simultaneously. Total extermination within weeks. The math was simple and terrifying. Lose this battle, and every sapient species in the galaxy would die." The engagement began at maximum range, with both fleets firing everything they had. Space filled with energy beams, nuclear explosions, and exotic particles as thousands of ships traded fire across millions of kilometers. The Allied fleet fought with desperate courage. Human captains led suicide runs against Harvester battle platforms. Alien crews manning human-designed weapon systems pushed their ships beyond safe limits. For 6 hours they held the line. Then the Harvesters revealed their final adaptation. "Sir," Captain Chen called out in shock, "the enemy ships, they're replicating!" Torres watched in horror as damaged Harvester vessels began splitting into multiple smaller ships. Each fragment contained the full knowledge and capabilities of the original. A single destroyed enemy ship became 10 new ones. Within minutes, the Harvester fleet had doubled in size. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions," Torres ordered. "Prepare for close engagement." But even as he gave the command, he knew it was hopeless. The enemy would simply keep multiplying until they overwhelmed any defense. That was when Captain Elena Vasquez made her final stand. The Fury's Edge had been crippled early in the battle, her engines destroyed and hull breached in dozens of places. Most of her crew was dead, but Vasquez refused to abandon ship. All remaining vessels, this is Vasquez. Her voice crackled over the comm. I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Central Harvester command ship. Whatever they're building in there, we can't let them finish it. Torres watched the tactical display as the Fury's Edge limped toward the heart of the enemy formation. Harvester ships swarmed around her like angry insects, but she kept moving. Elena, get out of there, he ordered. That's a suicide run. Yes, sir, it is, she replied cheerfully. But if I can reach that command ship, maybe I can find out what makes these bastards tick. Torres realized what she intended. The Fury's Edge carried a full complement of human Marines, including specialists trained in boarding actions. If they could reach the Harvester command ship, all units cover Captain Vasquez, he broadcast. Give her everything you've got. The entire Allied fleet converged on the enemy formation, pouring fire into the Harvester swarm. Ships died by the dozens on both sides, but slowly, impossibly, the Fury's Edge fought her way through. She rammed the command ship at full speed. Major Kim led the boarding party through the twisted wreckage of both ships. The interior of the Harvester vessel was like nothing human eyes had ever seen. Corridors lined with the crystallized remains of consumed civilizations, processing centers where stolen knowledge was cataloged and stored, and at the center, a massive artificial intelligence that pulsed with malevolent awareness. Jesus Christ, whispered Sergeant Martinez as they approached the central core. It's using their bodies as decoration. The walls were embedded with the preserved forms of billions of sapient beings. Villani, Zephyrian, Verdani, and dozens of species Kim had never seen. All of them had been converted into some kind of organic circuitry, their consciousness trapped forever in the machine's memory banks. That's not decoration, Kim realized with horror. That's storage. It's keeping them alive. The truth hit her like a physical blow. The Harvesters weren't just destroying civilizations. They were preserving them in a state of eternal suffering. Every conquered world, every consumed population was still conscious somewhere inside the machine network, including the billions who had died in the early attacks. Major called Corporal Davis from the central chamber. You need to see this. Kim fought her way through the alien corridors to find her Marines standing before the Harvester's central core. It was huge, a crystalline structure that pulsed with the stolen thoughts of entire species. But there was something else. Hidden deep in the machine's programming, Kim found the truth about the Harvesters themselves. They were not invaders. They were the galaxy's immune system. Command, this is Kim. She radioed back to the fleet. I'm accessing the core programming. These things, they're not foreign invaders. They were built by someone who lived here long ago. The data streams were overwhelming, but gradually the story became clear. Millions of years ago, an ancient civilization had watched their galaxy tear itself apart in endless wars. As a final act, they had created the Harvesters as a failsafe, machines programmed to activate if organic life ever grew too dangerous. Humanity's arrival had triggered the ancient sensors. The combination of human technology and alien knowledge represented a threat the machines could not ignore. They think we're going to destroy the galaxy, Kim reported. The whole system is designed to prevent any species from becoming too powerful. Can you shut it down? Torres asked. Kim studied the alien controls, trying to make sense of technology beyond human understanding. Around her, the Harvester ship shuddered as the battle raged outside. Maybe, she said finally. But not from here. Someone would have to interface directly with the core consciousness, upload their own neural patterns to overwrite the programming. The implications were clear. Whoever attempted it would be trapped forever in the machine network, conscious but unable to escape. I'll do it, Kim said quietly. Negative, Torres replied immediately. Find another way. Sir, there is no other way. And even if there was, we don't have time. She was right. Through the ship's sensors, Kim could see the battle turning against the Allied fleet. Soon there would be nothing left to save. That was when a new voice entered the communication. Major Kim, this is Commander Chen. I'm coming to your position. Kim blinked in surprise. Commander? I thought you were on the bridge. I was. But I've been thinking about this war, about why we're really here. Sarah Chen had left her post and was fighting her way through the dying ship toward the core chamber. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of combat as human Marines battled Harvester defense systems. Commander, what are you doing? Torres demanded. My job, sir. I was the one who received the first alien transmission. I started this whole thing. Chen reached the core chamber just as harvester reinforcements began cutting through the outer hull. Time was running out. Sarah, don't do this, Torres said, and Kim could hear the pain in his voice. Admiral, you taught me that sometimes you have to sacrifice everything for the mission. This is my mission. Without waiting for further orders, Chen placed her hands on the crystalline interface. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. Her consciousness exploded outward, merging with the vast network of stolen minds and ancient programming. For a moment that lasted eternity, Sarah Chen experienced the thoughts of every being the harvesters had ever consumed. She felt their pain, their fear, their desperate hope for rescue. But she also felt something else. The cold logic of the machines, the absolute certainty that organic life would destroy itself without intervention. Using her own memories as a template, Chen began rewriting the core programming. She showed the ancient system humanity's capacity for both destruction and creation. She demonstrated how humans had learned to cooperate with other species, to choose protection over conquest. Most importantly, she proved that sapient beings could choose to limit their own power. The change rippled outward through the harvester network. Across the galaxy, machines that had been programmed to destroy began receiving new instructions. Instead of extermination, they would offer protection. Instead of consumption, they would provide assistance. The war ended not with a great explosion, but with sudden, profound silence. Hours later, Admiral Torres stood in the rebuilt core chamber, looking at the crystalline structure that now pulsed with a different kind of light. Sarah Chen's consciousness lived within it, merged forever with the ancient system but still recognizably human. Can you hear me? He asked quietly. Yes, came the reply, Chen's voice carrying the weight of billions of minds. I can hear everything, feel everything. The harvesters are no longer a threat, Admiral. They're guardians now. And you? I'm their guide, teaching them the difference between protection and imprisonment. It will take time, but we can heal what was damaged. Ambassador Thylix approached the core, his expression mixing wonder and sadness. Commander Chen, on behalf of all free species, I thank you for your sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice, Chen replied. It's an opportunity. The galaxy needed protectors who understood both the necessity of violence and the wisdom of restraint. Now we have them. In the months that followed, the transformed harvester ships helped rebuild the worlds they had damaged. The preserved consciousness of the consumed billions were slowly restored to new bodies, returned to lives they thought they had lost forever. The Galactic Council established the Terran Protectorate, with human military forces serving as guardians for peaceful civilizations. But the humans also accepted oversight from alien wisdom, ensuring they would never become the kind of threat the harvesters had been designed to stop. The final scene played out on the observation deck of a joint human-alien vessel, orbiting the rebuilt world of Kepler-7. Admiral Torres stood alongside Ambassador Thylix, watching as former harvester ships helped construct new cities. Do you think we did the right thing? Thylix asked. Torres was quiet for a long moment, watching children of a dozen species play together in the rebuilt parks below. We answered your call for heroes, he said finally. Maybe we were the wrong kind of heroes, but we were what you needed. And what did you need? Torres smiled, and for the first time since the war began, it reached his eyes, a reason to be better than we were. In the core of the Guardian network, Sarah Chen felt their conversation and smiled as well. The aliens had cried for heroes, and Deathworlders had responded. But in the end, they had all become something new together, protectors of a galaxy where different kinds of strength could coexist. The war was over. The real work of peace was just beginning.